So welcome everybody to the Future of Leadership, our 7th webinar of the series. And this is a very important moment where we ask, why redesign? So happy to be again here with you, and followed by some of the amazing leaders that I meet along the way. And today I have the honor of having a very dear friend and great leader, Pernille Spiers-Lopez. But before I introduce her, I wanted to speak a little bit about Briyah. So what is Briyah? Briyah is a benefit corporation, and our mission is to bridge innovation, practice, and purpose to inspire leaders to change organizations and to build and create an impact economy. And what is an impact economy? So that pursues profits, but also pursues social and environmental impact, positive impact in the world. So again, this is the 7th webinar of the series. And as I said, I'm happy to have Pernille Spiers-Lopez with us. So Pernille is an inspiring leader. She is a global director who serves in several boards, including the Media Corporation, the ECO, Save the Children International, London and US, and Homeboy Industries. Pernille was with IKEA for 21 years. And among several top executive positions that she held, she was also the CEO and president for IKEA North America, was a member of the executive management team of IKEA Group for 10 years. She has dedicated most of her careers to the advancement of women in leadership, both inside and outside IKEA. Pernille published her first book in Denmark in 2012, about personal leadership and taking responsibility for your own life and success. So If Your Life Was a Kitchen, that was the first book. And the English version came later. So Design Your Life was published in the US in 2014 and more recently in China. So she's also the co-founder with her daughter of Good Life Designed. And we'll definitely hear from her about the great things they're doing there. So thank you so much, Pernille, for being with us, for taking the time to share all this wonderful knowledge you have. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Adriana. And it's just, a pleasure to also see Briyah Institute sort of glowing and growing. So wonderful to be part of this. And as you know, I am passionate about design, and I certainly did not know when I first started working on the book and naming it that it would be much broader than just a funny thing about my own life and IKEA and my life with home furnishing design. So just want to share the story about If Your Life Was a Kitchen. I was approached by a Danish publisher, actually the oldest publishing company in Denmark, and they had heard I was, possibly leaving, and she really wanted me to create this book. And I was like, what? I was very stressed at the time. And I'm like, what do you want this book to be about? I couldn't even think about writing a book. And she said, well, the thing is in Denmark that most women are actually spending most of their life and most of their energy and most of their money on designing the perfect kitchen, but they actually don't really have a plan for their own lives.
Wow.
So that was the idea of the book, to share my own story with women in Denmark about not only designing the perfect kitchen, but why not also design your best life. So that was the sort of the start of that concept. The great, you could say it was a great and fun, play on words to If Your Life Was a Kitchen, but it really was kind of difficult to sort of explain that it was a self-help book or personal leadership book. So when it came to be published in the US, we came up with the idea. It really was about take ownership, design your own life. And it is interesting because I never thought, I started out as a journalist, but then life took me in another direction, and never actually thought I would be back writing a book. So here I was, and I did not realize that that was going to be a really, really special time, because I had decided when I left IKEA to take a year off and literally pause, come up for air, really reflect, reset the button, and of course, redesign my own life. And that became such an important learning. And I realized in writing the book that up until then, I had literally lived on autopilot. No, I had just been, oh yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do that. Having children, starting a family, and before you know it, you're literally on just a path where it's tough to stop and breathe. So this was a great opportunity for me to stop and do that. And then I also was realizing, and the book became very much about sharing tools that I had received at IKEA and that I felt were really great opportunities to share with others that don't get to go to personal development that the company pays for. And it became really a purpose for me to be, accessible to more people, the concept, the learning, and my own story. And I worked very closely with my daughter, who was just starting out in life. And my daughter is actually, I think, watching and being part of this today. But we decided to start Good Life Designed to really help people of all ages, to give them the tools to really own up and take ownership for your own life. And I had spent my whole life thinking about world and myself with external input, and had never really spent time on sort of stepping back and tapping into my own personal resources, and realizing that happiness is an inside job, and we all need to pause and sort of take ownership. Good Life Design today, we have developed it, and we are literally have come up with a process of how to get hold of your true self and rethink and replan your life. And it has just been amazing looking at how that process works, and using a little bit of design thinking here. But when you go through the process, people get such ahas, and they're actually, it's not necessarily that you're changing everything about your life, but you feel more in control. So what we offer today is an online program. We do retreats, and we do workshops, and of course, during this pandemic, we have actually had great success in developing a online community and program via Zoom, and have had people from 24 to 75 on, and from all over the world, and we're just, everybody is just taking such advantage of really, at this time, also really thinking about what works for me, what do I need, and how can I move forward. So seeing a lot of great things of people taking ownership and moving forward with much more clarity, consciousness, and a real good design plan.
Right. And what a better way to do it than being yourself a role model, having you gone through the process of designing your life, as you explained to us. Although, people see that we reach, the top, we reach the senior level, we reach the C-suite, the CEO position, but sometimes we're just going in autopilot. We don't realize it. So it's beautiful that you shared that you yourself had the aha moment, took ownership to design what's next. Especially now, we are living so much more than in the past. And with the moment we're in, the fourth industrial revolution, where we have so many new possibilities that science is bringing us, right? All the connectivity, we can be like we're here, like you're in California, I'm in Miami, we're having this wonderful conversation, some guests that will be asking questions from different parts of the world. And this is all possible now, right? So better moment, there couldn't be a better moment. And also, before I ask you a question more specifically about the journey of the individual that you help empower so much, I just wanted to mention that we have a common friend we admire, Edie Weiner, who says that we are living in a moment where capitalism is changing. So we have all this conversation about stakeholder capitalism and whatnot, but she says we're probably moving towards a public capitalism where the actions of the companies, how they invest, how they treat people, what they do, what they say, is going to be everybody's business. So people are looking, and we have to be more mindful of that, because there is the need and the request for this transparency, right? But also she says that because it's not only a matter of adapting, it's a matter of going back to square one and designing these new models, designing these organizations. So it ties in back with, okay, let's start with the individuals, because corporates are full of people. They're made of people. So let's design the individual first, right? And organizations next, but it's the right moment to design. So I love that.
And Adriana, just a comment to that, I think, because I think it is really important that also realizing that the external, there's so much going on though, and the speed of change and the whole digital revolution, and things are just coming so fast at individuals. And then you add the pandemic and racial unrest and injustice and all of these things. And it just goes faster and faster and more complex. And so if you don't, as an individual, have tools to pause, and so you just literally get, you know, sort of swirled in the hurricane and have no way of figuring out how to get out. So I think that is why it is always, we always have the opportunity to step back, pause, breathe, and kind of hopefully then have tools to sort of, you know, kind of figure out, how do I fit in, rather than just be pulled in and have no control. And that's always the worst, when you are just pulled in and feel like you're literally spinning in a hurricane and have no way of figuring out how you ground yourself and get back on your feet. So.
Yeah, I used your book and the tools there when I was moving from executive to entrepreneur, and I found that very helpful. So in different moments in our lives, if you allow yourself to have those moments of reflection, is so important, right? So tell us a little bit about this experience. Before I go there, let's take a poll. Let's see if our audience is designing their lives from big organizations, small organizations, and whatnot. So let's bring a poll here to see the little bit of our audience. So if you are watching us here live, so please click on the button, answer the question. So are you designing your life in a big corporation, in a small and medium business, in a startup, in a government agency, in a not-for-profit organization, or you're just having a break from work, or none of the above? So please let us see how you're doing. Okay, we have lots of startups, big corps, and some not-for-profit, and some people that have a break from work. Let's see if I have no government agency. So we're not touching those now, but maybe they will watch the recording. Awesome, thank you. So that brings me to a question here. So Pernille, this is the individual taking ownership, right? So, and they can do that from wherever they are, and they can do that in many different moments in time. So there is like no perfect moment in life to do it, right? So just share a little bit of your experience with your audience. I mean, the people who come to you to look for this empowerment. You said that you have people from different ages. So how has this experience been with helping people find their power?
Yeah. First of all, I think it really is, you have to make a decision that you're actually willing to do this work. And you were just saying, Pernille, you've done this work. I've been doing this for 20 years. No, I mean, I keep on going back to using this work all the time. So it's like yoga. It's a daily practice. So that's number one, that people have to really be interested. I come and we meet people that come with a little bit of hesitation, a little bit like, and often with lots of worries about themselves and how they fit in and how comfortable they are with who they are, often feel small or overwhelmed. And I tell them, if you do the work and follow the process, you will come to some clarity. And it is interesting, the first 2-3 sessions are quite, the work you have to do is sort of giving you the opportunity to evaluate your current life. And often that is a little overwhelming and people are a little bit like anxious. But as you start working on some of the other, more tapping into yourself, and it's about core values, it's about really figuring out what is your purpose here in life. And it doesn't matter if you're 17 or 75, when you tap into your own personal core values, when you tap into, I am here to do something in the world, when you see the change, and it doesn't matter if you're a student, if you are somebody that has just retired and saying, I'm 75, I still have another 20 years, or if you are in the middle of your career and feeling like, I can't do it all, that moment when you get hold of that is beautiful. And we often go from people feeling, a little bit victimized, and to, I am a powerful person. I have personal power, and I'm never giving that away. That is mine. It is my strength. We use the palm tree as a great symbol of who we are as individuals, rooted in our, strongly rooted in our values, and at the same time, strong and tall and can sway in all kinds of situations, but we come back to our core. And to see how people really get hold of this and then they make change. And it can be subtle changes. It can be just committed to do this work over and over again, and get up in the morning and evaluate and journal and all of that. It is just amazing. And I can tell you so many stories of what people have done with their lives, or what they've done in the company they work, or with their, family business, or just with their spouse or their children, or rearranging things and reprioritizing. It's really been, and especially now during the pandemic, people are losing their jobs and they are feeling worried about the future, or they have a loved one they lost, and they don't have a place where they can go. And these are tools that work with any change in your life.
Yeah, and you know what I like the most about it is that you don't depend on anybody else. This is an internal process that you can do despite the circumstance. It doesn't matter if you have a job, if you don't, if you have good, outside conditions or not, because it's an empowerment that comes from within. You find your strength and you find alternatives to face the challenges ahead of you, right?
And a lot of times beautiful. People don't think they're going to find it. And we have a whole thing about daring, and this is interesting. I actually have a candle. We had a retreat in the beginning of the year, and the theme of this is really, we really believe that staying in the unknown is really important, and it's in the unknown that magic appear. Then of course this has taken a whole other turn than what we had expected. We have literally all lived in unknown in so many ways, but is daring.
That's life.
It is daring to be in the unknown and explore new thoughts, and give yourself time and not hurry, because it is when we hurry, we make the same decisions we've always done. We don't see those new dimensions. We don't see the new ideas, and we're hurried. And then you end up back in the same situation because you haven't changed anything, because you were too stressed about not knowing. So you just went with your old pattern and back to square one. So we really focus a lot on daring to be in that unknown, and see all the potential and possibilities you have as an individual. And so
this is exactly the approach we use at Briyah. This is systems thinking. This is really welcoming the unknown and seeing more possibilities. So I'm so happy that you're helping people from their perspective to get there, so change can happen from the individual. But I think in society, change can happen faster and better if it also comes down to meet halfway, right, from organizations. So my question to you is, how do you see the role of organizations in this process of design? Because for quite some time now, we've had organizations implementing policies for inclusion, for instance, but they're not there yet. So let us share with the audience here just a study that came from McKinsey of women in the workplace, because this is so mind-blowing to me, at least. So they indicate that the underrepresentation of women, for instance, in senior management cannot be explained by attrition alone. So what is your take on that, Pernille? Is it time for redesign of organizations?
Well, I think it has been time for a very long time, to be honest with you. I have seen, that this picture. I've understood that for a very long time. So I have been in the work of redesigning organizations for a number of years, with HR and with IKEA. Then I've been out of it a little bit, but I've always been focusing on how do we get more women specifically in leadership roles, because when women are at the table, we change dynamics, we change the way the agenda works, we change culture, the way we interact with each other, we make different types of decision together. So women add a lot at every level. It's and it has still been just a pushing elephant up the stairs. And when I saw this, I mean, look at this picture. You still look at, there are maybe 10 female CEOs at the top, at the Fortune 500 companies. And when I saw this picture, I was like, it is designed to make it easier for men. It is designed for men, by men, and they're white. I mean, this picture shows that. So I have kind of intuitively known that, but you and I talked about it. When I saw this picture, Adriana, I was like, wow. It was very much like, yes, this is not going to change by a few more women pushing up the stairs. When you get to that C-suite, I don't know how many women have felt this is a great place to be. You might feel that it's great because you are there, you have worked your way up, you have obviously performed incredible, and you've had to overcome many things to be at that C level of the 19. But when you get in that, when it's dominated by a culture that isn't that inclusive, it is not that easy to be there, and it is easy to lose confidence, and it's easy to lose your sort of interest in taking and doing this years after years after years. And I think with the pandemic, with what's happening, and this report was really at least shocking to me, that we've done all of this progress, or we've tried to do progress. We haven't really progressed a lot. And with all this effort, now anything we have improved is going to be pulled back, because in this report, we know that 1 in 4 working women is saying, I've had enough. So now any kind of progress, women are saying this is just not working. So with the pandemic, we know that women they already had the work of primary work for most families of organizing and taking care of the kids and a lot of the home duties, et cetera, even if there's a lot of men that are very, very good at helping and all that. But now we see that all of the work around, homeschool, at the school that the help you got to do with your kids, a lot of the childcare, a lot of the housework, all comes under the shoulders of the women. And at the same time, working from home has also been shown to create a lot more, stress and anxiety for all workers. We're producing much more, we're much more efficient than, so companies are benefiting from, a really, really high performance by people working from home, which they never thought that was true. But we see that more effectiveness, efficiency, but the stress that women are feeling. So is it time for redesign? Absolutely, it has been. And I think this cannot continue. And as you can see, it's tough if you are a white man, and often, they are great men running organizations, but what is the incentive to change this if you are a white male? That incentive is, of course, tough. It really has to come from your heart. because your head is telling you this is really yeah, this works, you know, but if it doesn't come from your heart, and that you're really, really seeing that we got to create a future where many, many more brains and, you know, opinions and perspectives are coming in to be a much more competitive and you know, sustainable organization.
And then it all goes back to the pattern idea, right, that you're saying. So if we don't get out and change and align with our values, we don't get out of that same old pattern. Organizations are just like individuals in that regard. So if the decision making is done in only one way for many, many years without change, you only get a specific pattern, which is the one that led us to the situation we're in with this numbers, right? So we need to redesign to get a different pattern if we want to really be inclusive organizations, right?
And I think too, Adriana, I mean, everything shows right now, I think it's like 50, but like the corporate sort of work culture is, people are just fed up with it. People are, I think it's 50% of the millennials are like, we can't do this anymore. We don't believe in sort of the corporate structure or the corporate way of doing things. So you have women that want to leave. You have, there's all kinds of, I think, signals that this is a time for really rethinking it. But I also just want to mention that there is this idea of the sort of like rethinking organizational design. And I think if we don't in some way rethink, and there's a fantastic concept out there where you're looking at different models, and I think the model we're in many corporations is still this very much top down. It's kind of like it runs like a, you know, a tight machine, and it's just not really what inspires and includes many other ways of doing it, and you're sort of leaving out a lot of innovative thinking. And yeah, I think there's a lot of things that needs to change.
And we got a question here from Andrea Sala that speaks exactly to that. She says, Pernille, first I want to say that I love hearing you. You are inspiring me in many ways. My question is, how can I empower myself to achieve my full potential if the company I am working for don't give me equal opportunities, which is exactly what we were talking about. So you want to answer Andrea a little bit?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for what a great question. So I think there is, if it, and I'll come back to it because I think there will be other maybe conversation about that. But to what you were saying before, Adriana, about Edie and her idea about the public engagement. We just went through an election where I think there was a call for, you know, you got to let your vote be heard. Now we need to unmute ourselves. So I don't think that it works anymore for us to feel muted. And it doesn't matter where you are, if you are a citizen, if you are an employee in a corporation, if you are really wherever you are. I think it is time for people to speak up and not be afraid. And there's a couple of things, you know, I've always said, when you're not happy about something, you have a couple of options, but there's only a couple. No, you actually change, you accept, or you leave. Because if not, everything else is like you become like a, you know, undermining and sort of toxic, etc. You become a victim. So to you, I will say, if you believe that you have incredible potential and possibilities and are actually underutilized in your organization, it's worth to see if there's something you can do to actually raise your voice and actually address it with some level of confidence. And also be okay with, they say, no, we actually don't see you, because a lot of companies don't see us. No, they don't hear us. We are part of a succession planning map. But if they see you, then good, because then you have opportunities. And if you feel they actually don't see your potential, there are all kinds of other companies, and you got to have the courage to say goodbye. It is just that simple. But I think it is, of course, difficult if you don't have another job. But the minute you say, okay, now I know, I can start really figuring out what I want to do and where do I want to apply. And you can still be doing your job at the company, but you have understood that this is not a match long term. And you should not waste a minute in an organization that do not value you. And I think we always need to check our own performance, no? Because I've been in jobs where I was like, I could probably step it up a notch, and really engage in projects and things like that. So I think before we also sort of, feel that there is stuff the company's lacking and are not seeing, maybe I also need to just check with myself. Am I a star performer? Am I doing my best?
Yeah, there's some things you can do in your comfort zone that still empowers you to see differently, to act differently, and to feel differently. But there are others that maybe is a waste of time. And speaking of having a voice and the power of the citizen stakeholder, let's invite a special guest to ask you a question directly. So we're going to have Renard Aron with us. So Isabella, if you can please allow Renard to join us in this conversation. So Renard is our past guest in the webinar here, The Rise of the Citizen Stakeholder. He's also an expert in government affairs and policy and the author of the book, Digital Lobby, how the connected citizen influences decisions from government and companies. And he's going to be asking a question directly to you. So welcome, Renard. I still can't see you. Isabella, can you help us here to see Renard, please? Are you on mute? I don't see your picture. I still don't see your face, but we'll see. You're on mute too. Isabella, can you unmute him, please? Renard, can you hear me?
Yes, but the system here is not cooperating.
Yeah, I can't see you. Okay, but maybe we can go ahead and start the conversation and I can welcome you again. So thank you, Renard, for being with us. Hopefully we'll fix this issue with the camera so we can see you, but it's great to have you. And please feel free to ask Pernille your question.
I will. Well, Pernille, it's great to hear you. I've actually a similar story from you. But just similar. I started writing a book before leaving the corporate world, and it's published, and it talks about the citizen stakeholder and the power the citizen has using social media to voice their opinions. And that is more or less where my question goes. And we have talked about this a little bit here today with Adriana, is that corporations are being pressured to take position on a number of issues that interest the citizens, social issues such as environment, gun control, racism with the Black Lives Matter movement just a few months back being one very clear and visible example. And those issues are, they are not a unanimity in society. People have very strong opinions about those issues. Governments have strong opinions and diverging opinions. So corporations many times want to take a position, but they understand that this position may be a risky proposition. So from a leadership point of view, from a society that is changing, from organizations that are changing, based on your experience with IKEA, how can leadership prepare? What kind of input should they take to actually take or not take a position? And I think that would be my question. And thank you for the opportunity, Adriana.
Thank you, Hannah. Pernille, back to you.
Yeah, great to hear you. I didn't see you, but so I think this is an opportunity for leaders. I mean, we looked at another chart before, but here's a real opportunity when when we're thinking about all the things that are happening in the world and that actually matters to our stakeholders. And there's a lot of conversation about moving from shareholder value to stakeholder. And if we think about our coworkers, our customers, our community, and our suppliers, there is so many things that are affecting people, and they want to have an opinion about. So I think from a leadership perspective, I think as a company, you really need to actually have conversations about these topics all the time. And I think the stronger values you have, and as relevant they are in today's world, that is number one. Your mission and what you are here to do is also important, because those are your that's your North Star. That is your guidance in these times. So I can give you an example of environment in a grocery business that's been around for a very long time. What their mission is to be a very good community member, and also to leave the community in better shape than when they arrived. So it gives guidance to so many different things in terms of environment and sustainability and being, giving back to the community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are topics that have come up about, do we have, you talk about guns, are we selling guns in our stores? Do we, there's a lot of different things. And I think if it brings back the senior leadership to have those hard conversations based on what are we trying to do, who are our stakeholders, and we listen to our stakeholders, and at the same time, we are actually staying true to how we see our business, what we're here to do, and we're true to our values. And I think none of these conversations can be, you have to go over these topics with that in mind all the time. So I can see that, when I was at IKEA, there was products that we took 3 years to get out of the system, or material, because of environment and so forth. And of course, that's a difficult decision. But at the same time, if we hadn't done that, we weren't really going to live up to the things we had said we were going to do. So I would just say, like with anything, an organization that wants to be relevant in the future, there's going to be a lot of hard work and a lot of conversations, and maybe no to certain things that we've said yes to in the past, and bring new things in and new people's voices. I see organizations and companies that have a lot of input from all kinds of groups in their organization, and they listen and they hear what has to be said. That doesn't mean you fix everything, but I think this ear to the ground, and I mean that with all your stakeholders, is so critical. And there might be some tough decisions that you have to make. And we see it now. We see Facebook. We see, I think there was a walkout one day at Google for some things around sexual harassment, and how they had handled that with some senior people, et cetera. And I think Google was very good in handling and saying, yeah, we actually are okay with that because we could have done better. So I think being willing and able to have a culture where you are actually okay with this ground up movement, and that you're not afraid of it, you're actually inviting into it because it will make you better.
Right, so you align based on your values, and you redesign based on your values. That's what I'm listening here. Thank you, Pernille. Thank you, Renard, so much for being with us again. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully we'll be able to see you next time, but we can hear you.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So now let's invite another guest, a very special guest too. So Nayana Rizzo is going to be asking us a next question. So Nayana is also an expert in government affairs and policy, most recently dedicated to impact investing and committed to promoting planetary health and regeneration. So welcome, Nayana. It's a pleasure to have you, and please feel free to pose your question to Pernille.
Thank you. I think you can all see me, right?
Yes, we can see you beautifully.
Beautiful kitchen.
Thank you. Redesign your kitchen like you do your life. There you go. Thank you, Adriana, for having me. Pernille, what a great pleasure to hear you. I mean, every single word you said gave me goosebumps. So I'm so lucky to be here today. And I have a question that actually ties back to your answer and to Renard's question too. So maybe we can explore a little bit more. We talked about how we're dealing with a lot of complexity now and issues that are intertwined and interconnected. Renard mentioned a couple of them, you did too. And some of them were very exposed this year because of COVID-19. And we saw once again that we cannot see ourselves separate from nature, and that our health depends 100% on the health of the planet and how we treat it. So my question is really tying it to the environmental issues that we're facing today, the health issues that we're facing today. And this is where regeneration comes in. I really appreciated the example you gave of the grocery store that says we're in business so that we can leave things better than how we found it. That's really the definition of being regenerative. And to sustain the life as we know here on the planet, we need to not just preserve, but regenerate, leave it better than we found it. And this brings about a shift in the way we do business, the way we do politics, in the way that we understand growth and prosperity, and also a shift in our culture. So from a societal point of view, I would like to ask you your thoughts on how individuals can actually take part in redesigning culture so that we become better ancestors to the generations to come.
Well, great. I mean, sounds like we have a lot of things in common and how we think about things. So here, I think there is, I think it is time, for, as I said earlier, for us as individuals to unmute ourselves. And I will give you two examples because they really are inspiring. So I think that Greta Thunberg from Sweden, here's a young woman that literally started by getting herself in front of the parliament on Fridays out of school because she felt that people, the adults, were teaching and talking about one thing, but then their actions were different. So we know all of the things that is going to happen, and her being young and feeling this is my world that you're going to affect or you're not doing anything about. So I call for you for action. And to have seen how she, one person, one voice, has literally turned into a movement around the world is impressive. And I want to take the other person I wanted to mention is I have the great fortune of being on the board of Homeboy Industries, which is a very unique organization with Jane Fonda. And as you remember, Jane Fonda is and has always been an activist, always used her voice. And she said, and she is 82 years old, she said, I owe it to Greta Thunberg to never mute myself. So I am gonna get ready. And she said to me, she called me actually and said that she needed to go to Washington and live there and go and get herself arrested because she's like, I am gonna put myself on the line for this young woman and for the movement and for the next generation. And of course, because of COVID, she came back, but she has now a huge following, Fire Drill Fridays, and she has teamed up with Greenpeace, and they are really doing some great activism. Does everybody need to be an activist? No, but I do think that we have to, all of us, sort of be quite active if we want change. And I have joined an organization that's called Fund Her here in California. And it's really about using our voice also and our getting people elected into not only, I mean, we all talk about the presidency and we talk about the Senate and the House of Representatives, but a lot of decisions are made locally in state legislation. And this organization that I'm part of, we are literally helping to fund women that are ready to fight for the environment, for family policies that are a reform of our justice system, incarceration, and all of those kind of things. So yes, how do we create a culture of engagement, I think is really what is important, and not be afraid of using that voice. And I just want to use both Jane and Greta, because I think they are really good examples of a young woman that really, and there's many examples of the Greta Thunbergs. So we really can do something as individuals.
Thank you, Pernille. Thank you, Nayana, so much. Yes, this is a long road, and we all, if we speak up and have our voices heard, we can make a great difference in this planet. So stay tuned. Thank you very much. So now let's invite another special guest, Ana Paula Ferreira. She is an expert in corporate communications, and she is also a very patient leader, at least with me, teaching me how I come from a white privileged position when I speak. So we'll give her the voice to make a question about anti-racism to you, Pernille. So welcome, Ana. It's a pleasure to have you. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Mute. Not anymore, I hope.
Now I can hear you loud and clear.
Well, thank you so much, Adriana, for the opportunity. Pernille, thank you for being here with us. This discussion about redesign just really got me thinking about, we touched on this a little bit here already. Social injustice as one of the main topics that came out during 2020. And so I believe that one of the major topics that needs a redesign in corporations nowadays is exactly inclusion, right? So how to deal with that. And Pernille, so from your experience, heading a corporation and also your extensive experience in HR, I wonder, what have you seen in terms of barriers that have come up for Black professionals, and not just where you worked, of course, but CEOs talk, right? And you observe, and even after your life, in the corporations, what you see as barriers, and also what would a follow-up would be. So what leaders can be doing to redesign their mindset so these barriers are not there anymore. And I really appreciate Adriana, saying that, and you're all white people here. And so I understand that you speak from a different place, but as a Black woman, it's interesting for me to see what you guys see in the corporations. And maybe this whole experience in 2020 has even changed, Pernille, your perception, things that you thought maybe, no, it's not a barrier, but now, given all the conversations, perhaps you even had a change in your own mindset. So happy to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, first, Ana, I would just say that I was in a lot of ways really shocked and really, really sad during the whole George Floyd, first of all, his death and what we've seen over the years, and it is just a very, very sad situation. And I can tell you, I was completely personally taken back and disturbed, because I have worked with this on a personal level. My husband is Mexican. I have worked with lots of African Americans, and I have friends that are African Americans, and I feel that when that happened, I was just not aware of, I had not connected all the dots. And I remember my husband saying to me, because I said, the whole system is broken. And he said, no, it's not broken. It's always been designed this way. And then I was like, what? And then I started my own journey. I was not gonna, you know, I needed to just figure out how could I get that so wrong. And then I did a lot of reading, watching movies that were recommended to me. And I probably spent 2 months in just, putting my toes into a world that I just, for some reason, had been outside of. And I realized that I will use my white privilege. I own that, no? I will use that for service and support. And I went back took some diversity, equity, and inclusion training from a woman that really put it out there, how to create anti-racism, what does it mean? And I think it is a big issue in the United States. And I'm sure, I know it is in other countries, but it is a big thing in the United States. And I feel that there is a lot of work and a lot of conversations that we need to hear and have with each other. And I can tell you that I'm part of an organization where it's a mentorship, and it's like a membership, a group of women that come together, and the women of color came and actually spoke about what this all meant to them. And I think what I realize is that, I can speak about it as a woman. When I was in a corporate world and I made it up to the top, I had to leave a lot of what I like to talk about at the door, because I needed to, kind of talk the guys talk. And I cannot imagine what many men and women have had to leave at the door at a corporation because they could not show up the way they truly are and who they are, have to change the way we speak, how we dress, how, all of those kind of things. So I just want to let you know that this was such a emotional time for me, because I felt sadness, shame. I felt like, how could I? But I own that, and I am on a journey will never ever see that through the same lens again. So I have a new lens now, and I am very happy that I have that lens now, and that I will able to see through, initiatives in a different way. So I am on boards, and when we talk about diversity and equity and inclusion, I'm like, I want to talk about how we're going to do that different this time, because I've done this. I started diversity at IKEA in 1998, okay? And I cannot tell you, just like we talked about women, I cannot tell you that we have actually come a long way. And I think it starts with that we don't have the right conversations, and when it needs to be redesigned, it's, this typical hierarchy organizations, I don't think that works for other than the people that was designed for. So I believe that we talk about redesigning organizations much more flat, much more interactive and interdependent, and with much more of ability to bring people in all along the way in a different way that we have. Because, I don't think it's going to change by just having policies and procedures. I mean, okay, so the policies are not that discrimination. Now it's, you got to be anti-racist. I mean, policies are not what's going to make a difference. It's all of us owning where we are. And I'm hopeful, because I think this is the first time this country has really understood that we do not want this to go on, and it's gone on way too long. And so in companies that I'm at, we actually had an update in one organization on their efforts, and I was so proud that the CEO wanted to bring conversation in around healing, and and I was like, wow, that I had, because in the past they would say, we've done this training, we've done this training. No, I have gone and listened to different groups and really heard for the first time, things that I never knew. But I'm glad that I've heard it, and I'm glad that we now have a different conversation. And compassion is what's needed in organizations. Now, we don't need to fix all of each other's challenges and stuff, but we need to be compassionate. We need to stand next to each other and be there, and without judgment, and really in we're all here to all do the best and live our possibilities and potential. So what do I actually say? I think it is leadership with compassion that's needed. And I think we all need to own up to that. The system that we have has always been designed that way, and we need to take ownership. We need a new design that includes everybody, and sincerely, not just so you can check it off, or, no, really, we got to all be together. And Father Greg, who is my inspiration at Homeboy Industry, he says, when we all stand in the same circle in compassion and love for one another, and no one is left outside, that's what we need to do. So if you have a corporation or a culture, if you have people that are left outside that circle, we have not done what we're supposed to do. Yeah. That was a lot, but that's truly coming from my heart. I hope that,
Thank you.
Thank you, Pernille. Thank you, Ana, so much for your question. We have another question from Amanda, who's also a Black woman, very powerful leader from Ghana, asking here, and it's along the same line. I'm just going to read it because we're also running out of time. But she says, in the last few months, some companies are embracing social, political, and environmental causes, Black Lives Matters, sustainability programs, and others. Do you think the corporate world can drive important change in our society? And if yes, what is the new role of this corporate leadership? So you touched it, but if you want to make a closing remark about that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think corporations can make a huge difference. They have made a huge difference in designing what we have today, and that can be changed into something new. And I think there are actually many, many movements that's showing us that we are going to create a new capitalism that is much more inclusive, going from just transaction to more of transformation, from shareholder to stakeholder, and really thinking about all these ESG components. When it comes to women, people of color, all employees, I think the big change is also that none of these new systems, none of these new redesigns should have people as sort of like a last minute, and let's not forget, because I can tell you, I've been part of that for so many years where we do all these changes and people are not at the forefront, they are an afterthought. So when we redesign, we need to redesign with people and organizational structure as a could even be the starting point. No, I mean, because if you don't have the right people, and if you don't have the right, people sitting at the table with the right competence, you're not going to get anything delivered. And again, it just needs to start with that we are including that from the beginning. And yes, corporations, in a lot of ways, I think, have the power to make the necessary changes. So it's a matter of, do they want, and do we have the right leaders in these organizations?
So let's hear our audience one more time. Before you go, everybody, a poll to listen to you and to see how you feel in order to redesign organizations for positive systemic change. What is the good practice you believe is the most important to apply? So please pick one. Is it prioritization? Is it collaboration through networks? Or is it aligning to a higher purpose? So please vote, and we're going to have the results coming up. All right, so aligning with a higher purpose and then collaboration through networks. Beautiful, thank you, thank you. So Pernille, this is amazing. Unfortunately, the hour has arrived and we are up, but it's a conversation that's just beginning. And I am very grateful and thankful for the job you're doing. And I also would like to welcome everybody who thinks that this is an important topic to join us at the Briyah Institute for the CEO Meet and Master program, because we're doing this curated groups where we talk about all of those issues, including diversity and how to take and develop and deliver results to all stakeholders. So this is our program, and you can, we'll share with you in the chat how to find more about this. But I just really want to say that we can be so much if we only embrace our leadership journeys, and like you say, if you embrace and design your life. So final words to our audience before we go, please.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, just thank you for joining in and being part of this. As you can tell, I'm quite passionate about it. And I think the only thing I will say is time to unmute ourselves. So yes. Let's get to work.
Unmute and redesign, I'd say, right?
Exactly.
and Pernille and Briyah is here. We'll have the frameworks, and we have all the tools you can get to just take it. So do it yourself, and the more people that do it, the better world we'll get at the end. So again, Pernille, thank you so much. It's a huge pleasure to have you. We'll continue the conversation offline, and thank you everybody for joining us today. If you feel inspired, join us, follow us on social media, and stay tuned for the next webinars of the Future of Leadership series. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.